the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you. And if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Hey everybody, I have Randy Pandis here today. So Randy, let's just go back through your history.
Okay.
I know you're a business owner, so what's the business that you have?
My wife and I own a clinic called Passport Health,
Okay.
which does travel medicine, not like traveling around the country doing temporary assignments, but we prepare people for overseas
To go
travel.
overseas.
So vaccines, anti-malarial meds, anything to keep you from getting sick while you're on your trip.
Okay.
And then we do some other things too, like immigration physicals, Department of Defense physicals, and some kind of specialized things in that area.
Okay, so you're a businessman, so you have that
Yes.
background.
Mhm.
You're also an Army vet, correct?
I am.
And
Yes.
when did you serve?
I was 86 to 92.
Okay.
I was active duty for 6 years. I was a Corps of Engineers officer.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, and then you have family though that were also in the military.
Yeah,
so-
my father was he's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. In fact, I was born on an Air Force base
Oh, wow.
in Puerto Rico. So I was born in Puerto Rico.
No way, wow.
Yeah, in fact, we're going there this week. I've never been back, so I don't remember anything about
Wow.
it. So I'll get to see it. Anyway, and then I have an older brother, Robert, who started out as a Marine and now finished as a Navy commander. He's an aviator as well.
Wow.
My father was a pilot, and then my younger brother is Navy intelligence also. He's retired now as well.
Okay.
All officers, so we covered all four branches.
Yeah, you did. And then your grandfather.
My father's father,
Yes.
is an immigrant from Greece.
Wow.
He came through Ellis Island in 1915.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he was in the military.
He was in the Greek Navy.
Navy, yeah.
He was, yeah. And I think that's how he learned about America, was,
Okay.
through his travels.
And so was America a big deal because of having an immigrant in that setting that came not that long ago? Let's face it, that's not like a long time ago.
No.
Do your family kind of feel a little more rooted because he went through Ellis Island, did all that stuff, or is it just because you guys? Why would all you guys go in the military? That was going to be my biggest question.
Well,
Because that's unusual, I would imagine.
yeah, I suppose. I mean, my older brother wanted to fly, so
Okay.
I wanted to fly, but I have a cross eyes, so they wouldn't let me fly. So I decided to do something else. But I also had a ROTC scholarship in college,
Okay.
so I was sort of committed, if you will. I was going to do it anyway. I don't know. Maybe it's a calling. Maybe it's a service thing.
Yeah,
Maybe there's just
yeah.
certain people that have that martial blood in them,
Yeah.
so to speak. And
Yeah.
my younger brother didn't get into it till later, probably like later 20s. I graduated from college at 21 and went on active
Where did you go to
duty.
college?
Just north of Atlanta, at Kennesaw.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Kennesaw State University, or University of Kennesaw now.
Okay.
It's grown exponentially since I was there. But
So I have you here for a reason. So I know you also have a biblical background to you from master's, right?
yes, I took seminary courses at the Master's Seminary in
Awesome.
California.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So Randy is one of our teachers here, but also what I want to do is just kind of go over something that I know you're politically at least in tune to what's going on in the
Right.
United States. You have to be, is what you do for a living for one, but
Right.
also your military background. I imagine you're always kind of interested in what's
Yeah.
going on. One of the things that's been very interesting to me and to Tanya, and I'd say to Alex too, is that the idea of DOGE, okay?
Right.
And a lot of people are excited about it. A lot of people are angry about it.
Sure.
But I want to take a biblical approach to this, so when our people see this, they can kind of grasp onto maybe there's a biblical side to this thing, and maybe not on some points. But what's your thought of DOGE itself?
Well, just the short part of it is I'm very much in favor of it. I mean, anybody that's known me for any length of time, I've been on this for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
About reducing government. We have too many agencies, too much waste, and all of that. So to me, it's long overdue.
Yeah.
But
Biblically,
from a biblical perspective, if you don't mind,
No,
I'll
go
just
ahead. I'm glad that you have notes.
share
That's
a
awesome.
few thoughts. But in 1 Corinthians 4:2, it reads, moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. So stewards, right? These folks we have in government, either elected and all of the civilians that work for the we'll call it the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
in my opinion, and I think most would agree, they have a responsibility to be good stewards.
They do. And steward is a manager of whatever God has given them responsibility over,
So Proverbs teaches us in many places about thrift and responsibility. Yes. We learn about stealing being wrong in Exodus. It's one of the Ten Commandments.
It's a big one.
In the New Testament, especially in the Pauline writings, like bishops and deacons, we're told one of the admonitions is don't be greedy.
That's right.
Right. And I think as we dig a little further into this, we'll see that some of those that are in sort of on the wrong side of this, it's because of greed. Sorry, that's ringing. But anyway, also, so that's sort of the biblical side of it. But then on the secular or the responsibility side of the fiduciary, many of us have investments, things like that.
Yes.
So I'll just read a brief definition. But a fiduciary is a person or organization that acts on behalf of others and is required to put the client's interests ahead of their own, with a duty to preserve good faith and trust. And some of their responsibilities are act in their clients', if you will, best interest, act in good faith, provide relevant facts about an investment in the case of like if you have somebody managing your financial assets for you, and then avoid conflicts of interest.
Yes.
And it's based on the Latin word fidere, which is to trust. So all that to say, with DOGE looking at all the government agencies, various alphabet agencies, and so on, Department of Defense, and going down the list, we have our elected representation, and then we have all of the people that serve in government, either appointed or career. DOD or not DOD, civilian employees. Some of them work for DOD, but anyway, they all work for us, right? The tax money, government has nothing that it doesn't first take from somebody else, either voluntarily or they take it by force. And you don't pay your taxes, and you'll figure out how voluntary it is. So at any rate, but all that money flows from us or companies that pay corporate taxes, but government doesn't really generate any revenue.
No.
The best that they can do is provide infrastructure and maybe tariffs and things like that that help level the playing field. And maybe we'll get into that if we have time, because that's also a big subject right now. Yes, it is. But things like that, so they're responsible for basically, if nothing else, a level playing field for all of us. Right. And in our history, we've had antitrust laws and all these sorts of things to try and keep the business playing field level. Well, government, as a stakeholder in Company USA,
as a owner of a business, but also as an individual.
Yes, as a citizen of this country, I want the people managing the money, running the government. It's the biggest business in the world, probably the U.S. government, certainly the largest economy in the world. I want them doing the best, most responsible, frugal, if you will. Treat the money like it was their own, not so they can stick it in their pocket, but don't be wasteful with it. Be responsible with it. Don't just throw it out there. And I think there's a lot of people, especially a lot of elected people, that feel like it's their money.
Well, a lot of them talk like that.
It's not their money.
They talk like it is. Which is really odd to me. So DOGE. What is it? The Department of Government Efficiency.
Right.
And President Trump had brought this in. He had talked about it before he got voted in that he was going to do this. Yeah. And Elon Musk is the guy, I guess, running that part of it.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yes.
And then he has teams of people, obviously, go look everything up. So there are some, like myself and you, I love what they're doing.
Right.
Find what's not useful and get rid of it. And matter of fact, I'd say that I know there are presidents like President Obama, President Clinton, Reagan. All of them talked about reducing this down. Right. Talk is one thing, doing is another. Right.
Yes, exactly.
And so for us, I know that with the church, we don't want debt. That's not what we want.
Right.
But right now, our country's in $36
Yeah, it's an astronomical
it's
number.
ridiculous.
It's like pushing. It's probably pushing about 36 or something trillion right now. Yeah,
dollars.
the clock is spinning so fast
Yeah.
on the debt clock.
So we need to get that under control.
Of course.
And so that's what's going on here. And there was a lot of stuff that was found so far that was that makes the newspapers, I guess. All the little
right.
Pet things of different groups of people that you look at and go, are you kidding me? You're spending the money on this?
Yes,
And
exactly.
obviously that's all over the news. So on a biblical perspective for us as people in the church, when we look at the Department of Government Efficiency, I think that a lot of people don't even know how to look at it their own home. So if they don't agree to this,
yes.
I can imagine that they probably don't agree with it in their own home, meaning getting themselves in a good place. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, true.
It's probably a trend.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a responsibility, I'd say, for each family to make sure that they're doing their job to not go into major debt, to not join in this whole thing. And then we have a responsibility within the churches to say that that's something that we need to do.
Right.
But on a business setting, when you see this and you see that we've had a lot of, the taxes have been not so fun.
Right.
And,
and we're getting close to that time of year again where we have
We are. I was just with my accountant.
Pay the tax man.
I was just with them.
Yeah.
And that's a little scary also. Not scary, but it's just what it is. You have to, you pay the bills, right?
Yes,
you pay the
that's
things.
correct. Mm-hmm.
So for you, when you look at this and you see people that are getting not frustrated, angry. There's people literally getting angry. What is your thought process? So when you see that, why? Why would someone get angry about trying to cut waste out of the government stuff?
Well, you may hear it's not just waste, but fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yes.
Are three key areas they're looking for, and we've heard that for years.
Yes. It's been used throughout all the presidents.
And as you pointed out, everybody said they're going to do something about it, and they commission these studies, and then nothing ever gets done. And these organizations continue to just balloon in their spend and their budgets. But anyway, so fraud, waste, and abuse. So, and a lot of these bureaucrats they're the ones that run the day to day, right? So, some of them are outright committing fraud. Some of them are just abusing the system, maybe even not even knowing that they're doing it.
Okay.
And
this is something that's been going on for so long.
Yeah,
just do it.
And it's like, it's the way we've always done it. And then fraud, waste, and abuse. So the waste side, again, there's probably people that they know stuff's wasteful, but that's the way we've always done it. For example, when I was in the Army, we would go out to a range and say they gave us 10,000 rounds of ammunition.
Sure.
You didn't want to bring that ammunition back. You never wanted to turn anything back in because it would affect your budget, your numbers for next year. So we would just burn up ammo, or I was an engineer, so we blew stuff up, C4 and things like that. So we would use it up. We made sure we used it all up on something, because even if we had met our training objective for that event or that range or whatever, and imagine that, and this is just small unit stuff for me, but imagine that on a massive, imagine NASA or these large, or the entire DOD thinking that way. Well, we can't give it back because then they're going to cut our budget by that much next year. We won't get as much next year.
Yeah, and that's a concern in business too. You hear that from people, but go on.
Well, yeah, fortunately in business, when you want to, they generally encourage saving money.
Absolutely.
Because there's basically two things you can do in business. You can either increase sales or cut costs,
Correct.
right, to improve your profitability.
That's it.
So if you can lower expenses, ergo saving money, or maybe not use as much or whatever, then that's a good thing. And I don't understand why in our own government people don't want to see that as well. I understand people. I lost my job when we had the Graham-Rudman drawdown.
Oh, yes.
I was basically asked to leave the Army. So I've been part of a government.
That was the early 90s.
Yes.
Yes,
exactly.
I remember that.
1992, I was basically asked to leave the military. And, in retrospect, they actually did me a favor because I've made out better financially in the long run.
Yes.
But when you're going through it, it's not a fun thing.
No.
And I understand there's some people that are going to be hit by this, that it's going to, anybody losing their job is going to,
it's hard.
It's going to affect them. So you don't want to be evil or cruel about it, but there's also the reality of it. Look, we've got to get serious about getting this country financially, fiscally fit, responsible. And people are going to lose their jobs for that.
Yes.
And that's, and entire departments may go away.
Yeah. But then that means people are going into the private sector to find employment that way. Now, that's the question I have, is that these people lose their jobs from the government. Where is the opportunity for them in the private sector? But if the private sector, if the taxes are being dropped and they have an opportunity to increase their businesses, I guess they would then hire these people coming out of it. Would that be kind of the thought process, at least in this?
Well, right. I mean, when you have a lot of people getting unemployed all at one time, but and we'll look at the Trump administration right now, and because it's not just we're cutting headcount in the government.
Right, that's what I was wondering.
Look at all the businesses they're encouraging either to come back to the United States or come to the United States and set up massive manufacturing, bringing manufacturing back to our country, and a lot of high-tech stuff like chip making and these AI data centers and all that stuff. Yes, I noticed that, So there's opportunity coming back into the country, as well as the government positions being removed, if you will. And generally on a layoff in the government, I would imagine it's a multi-month, if not a year-long process or more. Some of these people, they've offered them like 36-month severance packages. Or early retirements or whatever to try and that's the one way you can do it, is you can just through retirements and natural attrition and things like that, and just don't replace those positions, phase them out. And I was listening to something on the news today for like the IRS, for example. They're dealing with like a 35-year-old computer system. And why hasn't, and they've spent like $15 billion to upgrade it, and they're still like not even close to being done.
Yeah, what happened there?
Well, right, because that's where you get into, is it fraud, is it waste, or is it abuse? Is it all three? There's in a massive organization like that, there's probably all three of them going on. And so again, that's happening across all of government, all that waste and abuse. So just cutting out all that waste and so on is going to free up a lot of. The other thing is when the government is taking money, it's not out in the private sector for the private sector to use, especially through like government borrowing and debt.
Okay.
So the more debt that our government's in, it affects the overall health of the economy that way too. So you don't want your government to be in debt.
No.
Because it's just not good for the economy in general.
Well, and biblically it says that we're not supposed to be in debt. We're not supposed to have the tail wagging the dog, right? That kind of thing. We need to be the dog that's wagging the tail, and debt causes us to be wagged by that, and that's not a healthy place to be. So biblically, we know that this is not a good place to be. What are your thoughts on military businessman? Your thoughts on what we can be doing in the church to support or not support this? And that's something that I think that's interesting, just to kind of get your perspective. So give me your thoughts on that.
Well,
it's not a small thing.
As I pointed out with some of the verses and just the general concepts that are taught in Scripture about being responsible, being fiscally responsible, not wasting, those are all good things. Those used to be admirable and encouraged qualities, right? We wanted people to be, thrifty and prudent and all those things with their money. And my money, if they're doing something with it on my behalf. And I think as believers, we want a responsible government. We want people working for us that we can trust. We talked about fiduciaries and the Latin trust. And if they're irresponsible with money, why should we trust them with other things, like foreign policy or a regulation in the country? And our country is far less free than it was even when I was a young kid. In my
it's
opinion.
different, definitely.
So just a lot of the rules and regulations that come down. So I think the more responsible and to communicate that to the church, as we've done Financial Peace University here. So if you get your personal life in order, and then you see what your leadership is doing. It's like, wait a minute, why am I being responsible? Why do why do I have to save money and clip coupons and do the BOGOs at Publix and
when
all
I
of
see
this?
my government $36 trillion in debt just spending it on whatever.
And they're sending it out all over the world for all these ridiculous programs, and we don't have to go down the list. I'm sure many people have seen it.
They have seen it, and most of them are just so far away from the Bible, it's ridiculous.
Yes,
so
exactly.
We don't need to get into the list. We already know that it has a lot to do with an agenda that's dealing with the trans and community and with the LGBTQTYZ community, whatever it's called. So we know that's a lot of what was going on out there, and that's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And promoting like abortion, they call it family planning, but abroad, and that's contrary to what
biblical worldview.
Yes, a biblical worldview.
We need to protect the innocent, and that's and every life is valuable, and every life is important, and their government's spending money outside of our country and putting money into other countries to bring that kind of worldview to them.
Which makes you kind of wonder, because if they're a conservative culture, how do they view the United States? They say, wait a minute, they don't like it, right? No. Exactly. So
just like, you and I are not in agreement with Planned Parenthood, or why are we putting money towards that? Why is any government money going to something like that where it shouldn't? Right. Let them, if people want to help abortion clinics and pay for that and give to that, give to that. Right. Just like as we would give to like an Oasis pregnancy center that's we're trying to see life take place. Sure. Right? And I don't get why the government's involved in a lot of that stuff.
Well, it's influence, but there's a whole, like they form these NGOs and then they fund them with all this money, and then the NGOs go and they hire all their buddies and all these people contribute back to pretty much one political party. Yeah. So that's why one side.
I've seen it in the Democratic Party.
That's why one side of this is screaming really loud, and the other side's kind of like, well,
why are you screaming?
Why are you screaming? Because you got caught, and you're going to lose that. Because I've wondered for many years, how do they sell these dumb ideas? They've got some weird dumb ideas. It's like, do that many people really believe this? Because when you talk to the average person on the street,
you don't hear that.
They just want to raise their family. They want to be left alone. They want to be able to afford groceries and a decent house and all this weird stuff's going on by these people that think they're smarter than us. I think the light is being shown on it, and people are seeing just how ridiculous things have gotten and how wasteful it's gotten. And in many cases, it's pushing an agenda that most of us don't even agree with.
No.
And your country's $30-some trillion in debt, and we're throwing money out to the world.
Makes no sense.
In my opinion, we should shut off all foreign aid.
Absolutely.
They should have to come to us with a business plan, basically. Like if I go to the bank and want a loan, guess what they're going to see? My balance sheet, my profit and loss statement.
Where's all the money going?
They want to see my financial health, any assets and all the things, and also my longevity. We've been in business for 20 years.
There we go.
So why would we want to just throw money out all over the place to people and not even really know what they're doing with the money unless there's some other agenda?
And they're not being good stewards.
Exactly.
That's like what you just said. If foreign aid is something we want to do, give us a business plan and show us where the money's going to go.
Right.
How's it going to be done, and who's accountable for it? Because money going to like Ukraine, the Ukrainian people over there. Well, no one knows where the money went.
Right.
They don't know what it was bought for.
Yes.
That's not a business plan. That's not being a good steward, a good manager of money. That tells you the government has been poor in that area, and there needs to be a responsibility. We do this with people who come and ask for money from the church. And we have folks that will come and say, hey, I would like to, I'm hurting. Well, we have a whole list. Our team has an entire list of all the paperwork they have to bring in.
Sure.
We want to see every record that they have, all the things, what's being spent, how's it being spent, showing them what needs to not be spent, to get into a better place. And only a couple of people have actually gone through with that. Most of them, the minute they find out what we want, they go, I thought you just gave money. No, that's the government. And we really need to get to a place where we don't say, no, that's the government, right? Does that make sense?
Well, right. And if you look at the government giving, whatever, charity we'll call it, or
yes.
Johnson sort of started this whole war on the Great Society and
Great
the War
Society.
on Poverty and all
Yep.
that, which has been a just colossal
disaster. Yeah.
And it's put more people in poverty.
Yeah, it has.
And part of the problem is they're just giving people money with no accountability that are perfectly capable of working.
Yep.
And I'm all for giving people a hand up
Yeah,
hand up when they're down. Everybody, I lost my job. I got laid off in corporate
right.
America. I've had
That's right.
Fortunately, I've never had to go begging, but it happens to
It does.
people, and so you help them out. But it should not be a lifestyle, and now it's generational.
Yes.
It should not be a generational lifestyle.
Yes.
Well, I'm just a ward of the government,
Yeah.
and especially if you're perfectly capable. We're always going to have people that are, not capable of working, or maybe they're injured or whatever, or have physical or mental challenges and they can't. But that is such a small fraction of the people that are receiving
Correct.
government assistance.
Correct.
That's just got to be, the whole system needs to be cleaned up.
So what we see in a biblical point of view here is when it comes to finances and when we're being good stewards, we need to have accountability.
Yes.
And so let's take it on a small scale, accountability for ourselves, having budgets and that
Sure.
kind of stuff, right? Sticking with the budget, saving, investing. Then we have for this church, same thing, a budget, stay with the budget, and be wise with when people they think they need money
Right.
to be able to say, well, here's our accountability.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? So if we could do that there, and you do that in your business, making sure you have your business plan and all that stuff, how do we get to a place, and is that what Trump's trying to do right now, and Elon and some others, is that what they're trying to do? They're trying to get some accountability with the government, and are they aiming to do accountability with overseas things as well? As like we give so much money outside of the government or outside of the United States. You just said something I thought was really interesting. Why are we giving money to any country?
Right.
Unless they have a business plan that has exactly what's going to be spent, how is it going to be spent?
Sure.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And again, we're in the financial. Well, what our debt service on
crazy.
is like $1 trillion a year.
It's
So
crazy.
we're paying an interest on the debt. So, or just servicing the debt. Imagine if the government didn't have to pay out $1 trillion
Oh my gosh.
just to pay back loans and
Yeah.
stuff, and that money could be put into infrastructure
Yes.
or the economy.
Yes.
Or,
All the things that we're
Yeah.
talking about to make the place a better place. Yes.
Or the educational system, which is a whole other animal that
yeah.
fortunately that maybe that's being dealt with as well. But anyway, so but the government being that big and that irresponsible, and that's the other thing. The further away you are, for example, you mentioned the church helping people. That's direct. Local level accountability. Next is like county or city, state, federal. Well, these federal bureaucrats are so far removed, they never even see the people that are getting the aid. And therefore, it's like they don't really care. There's not a whole lot of concern for efficiency or anything like that. It's more about just...
But what about going, like I said, going both ways? So we're talking about inside the United States and outside the United States. There should be accountability both ways. So, we should expect accountability in helping people in the United States, but also if we're going to help anybody outside of the country, as we said, like I love your plan, give us a business plan.
Right.
If it's Panama or whatever, give us your business plan. How's it going to be used? Show us how it's going to be done. Who's going to be accountable to give us the numbers back, right? And what's the ROI on all this thing? What are we getting in return, and what do we see any success?
Right, and I don't understand why that's a bad thing. People make it sound like, well, we ought to benefit, because that's essentially what Trump. Your question kind of started out with, what do you think the Trump administration is trying to accomplish with all of this? Well, it's let's do it where it's a win-win. Not make America great again isn't necessarily we win and you lose.
Right.
It's like we're great and we will work with you. We want to partner with you. We're all for international and free trade and fair trade.
Right.
Which is where the tariffs and all that argument comes in. So that's the thing with the Trump administration. They just want us to get treated well with everybody we're trading with, and if they're lying or they're stealing or they're our enemies. Then you're not getting American money.
No. And I think that's an important perspective for Christians to understand. Right. This is not about taking money away from people. What it is making it efficient, giving all of us a better opportunity in the long run, a better opportunity for everybody. As you said, you have actually done better financially as you got out of the military, and the hope is that we'll see that happen. I don't know if it's going to, but I know for us, at least we could do our part. So you could be a good steward with your business.
Right.
You guys could be good stewards with your business and with your home, and that's what we can do. Those are things we can do. And then with our voting, vote people in that want to have accountability.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what else to say about DOGE other than and supporting, reducing debt and getting into a better financial place and have accountability. I don't know why that's a problem.
Well, I think there's a mindset too. I'm very independent. I do not want to be dependent on anybody.
No.
I want to be my own man.
Sure.
And my wife and I want to run our family and our lives the way we want to. And if you're dependent on the government for your livelihood, then are you really free?
No.
Yeah. So
no, you're not.
I think, just from a personal perspective, I would want to get out of debt and off the government dole, so to speak. Yes, because then I'm my own man again, my own person again, and I'm more free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jesus, I came here to set us free,
That's
right?
right.
And that's the key of it all. So, it went real fast. We went 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, that's long. Okay, so we went fast on that.
Yeah.
But thank you, Randy, for being here. If you don't mind, I'd love to bring you back at a different time.
Of course.
Talk about tariffs and that kind of stuff. That'd be kind of cool for people to understand a little bit more. Yeah. You okay with that?
I am.
Awesome. All right, today is my favorite day. Guys, let's be better with our finances. Let's make sure we get out of debt, do our personal things we need to do, and then keep our government accountable. And I think we'll be in a better place. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.